Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com, promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. So the deadline came at 8 p.m. Eastern last night, and the announcement came that the Strait of Hormuz will reopen as part of a 2-week double-sided ceasefire. We have the latest for you from Iran. They were supposed to protect California's most vulnerable citizens, but these fraudsters allegedly stole millions from taxpayers and blew the funds on insane spending sprees for fancy houses, flash cars, private jets, and even breast implants. This is the latest scam of federal funds. South Carolina's economic development chief blames the state's Department of Natural Resources for the massive cost overruns on the side of the Scout Motors electric vehicle assembly plant just outside of Columbia, South Carolina, as the South Carolina General Assembly weighs whether to throw more money at the project. And Congressman William Timmons is with us today to talk about the Iran war, the government shutdown, and other issues the U.S. House is dealing with. It's a busy day, so let's get started.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
So just prior to the 8 p.m. deadline last night, Iran agreed to reopen the Strait of Hormuz as Tehran and the U.S. reached a 2-week ceasefire deal, a dramatic breakthrough in a nearly 40-day war that rattled global shipping and sent gas prices soaring. President Trump announced a pause on military strikes on Iran less than 90 minutes before his 8 p.m. deadline. Fox News has the story.
In a post on Truth Social, President Trump reveals he's agreed to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks, noting this comes after talks with leaders in Pakistan and is subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. The president goes on to say this will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East, adding we received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate, and a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized and consummated. Kristen Goodwin, Fox News.
And the president went on to say that that they had almost all of the various points of past contention had been agreed to between the U.S. and Iran. He added a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized. A 2-week period will allow the agreement to be consummated, he said, on behalf of the United States of America as president and also representing the countries of the Middle East. It is an honor to have this long-term problem close to resolution. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Tehran will allow passage through the Strait of Hormuz for the next 2 weeks under Iranian military management. Iran's foreign minister announced in a statement that condition was key to President Trump's 2-week ceasefire deal. The global cost of oil plummeted upon the news. The price of Brent crude, the international benchmark, nosedived 14% within an hour of Trump's announcement. Iran's Supreme National Security Council confirmed the ceasefire agreement, noting it does not amount to full-fledged peace. According to the Associated Press, it is emphasized that this does not signify the termination of the war. Our hands remain upon the trigger, and should the slightest error be committed by the enemy, it shall be met with full force, according to the Iranian media. Now, the U.S. and Iran are weighing in-person talks to finalize the peace deal, but the administration warns that nothing is final. So I guess the gist of the story here is there's still a lot of untied loose ends. This could last, and it could lead to a permanent deal, or it could blow up in a minute. Iran wants two major concessions from the U.S. as part of its 10-point plan, including the removal of sanctions dating back to the George W. Bush administration and greater control over the Strait of Hormuz. Tehran is also seeking guarantees that the U.S. and Israel won't attack again, along with the ability to charge tolls on cargo ships passing through the strait, a critical point, of course, for the global oil market. Newer news, an Iranian outlet linked to the country's Security Council, listed additional demands unlikely to be accepted, including continued uranium enrichment, war reparations, with the withdrawal of U.S. troops from the region. Now, again, if these are true demands, they just don't get it, do they? No way is the world going to agree to allow them to have control of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, President Trump has said repeatedly that his top goal for the war is to stop Iran from ever having a nuclear weapon. That's why we got into this. So for them to say that part of their conditional agreement is to include continued uranium enrichment, they're tone deaf. They just don't get it. That's never going to happen. A White House official refused to detail what was in the entire 10-point plan, telling the New York Post, "We do not negotiate in the press." As President Trump said, the 10-point document is a workable starting point. Another Trump administration official told the Post that there was relief among the president's team, but that nobody knows for sure if the war is truly over. And there was some relief there, wasn't there? Because I'm not sure that anybody wanted to see our jets and our missiles and our entire military might coming down on Iran last night to just totally destroy what would have amounted to their infrastructure that would have set them back for years, that would have caused a lot of harm to civilians. Now, the official said that U.S. objectives were largely met, including degrading Iran's military capabilities, though its nuclear material is believed to remain deeply buried. In order for these peace talks to last and for this to be permanent peace, I got to believe that we're going to want to see and want to be able to take control of what is suspected to be a stockpile of uranium in these buried bunkers. I just can't believe that we're going to walk away from this after the last few weeks and not verify and not make sure that uranium is gone. I mean, this conflict has already come at a steep cost. We've lost 13 troops, hundreds wounded, a price tag expected to exceed $100 billion. $100 billion that, by the way, we really don't have. $100 billion that could have been paid, that could have paid down our debt. Now, again, I was relieved, as I think a lot were, as this agreement came shortly before President Trump's self-imposed deadline at 8 p.m. last night. The U.S. demanded Iran restore shipping through the narrow waterway that carries roughly 20% of the world's oil supply, or face the devastating military action. They chose to do the latter, to open and to talk. Now, this came after the UN Security Council yesterday kind of complicated things as they passed a resolution basically telling the U.S. And telling the world that they condemned any further action as it pertained to the Strait of Hormuz, that they supported Iran's ability to control that passage. We expected at one point that maybe China and Russia would just abstain from voting instead of voting no as they did. Pakistan, which has served as the main mediator for the U.S. and Iran throughout the weeks-long, made this 11th hour bid for President Trump to extend the deadline for 2 weeks. They proposed that Iran could temporarily reopen the strait for that period as a goodwill gesture. and that seemed to work. China joined Pakistan in urging Iran to accept the 2-week ceasefire proposal. China's ready for this to be over with. We know how this has hurt other areas of the world. We suspect we know how it has hurt China, although they're not going to admit to it. But it's probably had a devastating effect on China's economy. Pakistani Prime Minister Sharif offered to host an in-person peace talk to finalize the deal. He invited American and Iranian delegations to Islamabad on this Friday, to further negotiate for a conclusive agreement to settle all disputes, he said on social media. Sharif wrote, "Both parties have displayed remarkable wisdom and understanding and have remained constructively engaged in furthering the cause of peace and stability. We earnestly hope that the Islamabad talks succeed in achieving sustainable peace and wish to share more good news in the coming days." The 2-week deal is a good thing. It comes after the U.S. unleashed targeted strikes on Iran's critical Karg Island, which Iran exports roughly 90% of its crude oil. 50 strikes were carried out on bunkers, a radar station, and ammunition storage on the Islamic Republic's oil-critical stronghold, while stopping short of targeting key energy infrastructure, such as oil tanker landing docks. We're told those were going to be next. And some of the damage that could have taken place had our strikes continued last night, and one would assume over the next week or two, some of that would have taken years and years to undo. So I guess the good news today is we have a ceasefire temporarily. Our prayer now is that all parties can come to terms, and this will be permanent peace in the Middle East. You don't have a weight problem. You have a body that's in survival mode, and no medication, crash diet, or app is going to fix that. Joey Hudson here. Ozempic, Wegovy. These GLP-1 drugs are exploding in popularity, and for some, they're a useful tool, but they don't address why your body started storing fat in the first place. At PhD Weight Loss, they treat the unwanted weight as a symptom, a signal that your metabolism, hormones, and stress response need some attention. When they correct those, the weight comes off naturally, and more importantly, it stays off. Because they're not just helping you lose weight, they're helping you increase health span and extend longevity. Right now, call PhD Weight Loss and mention Joey Hudson. You'll get 2 weeks free in the program, and they'll pay for your food. That's a $1,500 value, completely free. Call 864-644-1900. Do it right now. Mention Joey Hudson. Again, that's 864-644-1900, or go to myphdweightloss.com. No more guessing, no more short-term fixes, just a smarter way forward. This next story, you're not going to believe. You know, when taxpayers write a check, when you and I send our hard-earned dollars to Washington, to Sacramento, to Columbia, to whatever your state capital is, we do it with a basic expectation. That money is supposed to help people. It's supposed to run our government in an efficient manner. To protect the vulnerable, that's what we expect. To lift up those in crisis, that's what we demand. To save lives where lives are literally hanging in the balance, that's what we want our government to do with the hard-earned dollars we send to them. But what happens when the very people trusted with that mission turn it into a personal shopping spree? That's not just mismanagement. That's betrayal. That's criminal. And folks, the stories coming out of all parts of the country, Minneapolis and now California, they're nothing short of staggering. So here's the story. Let's walk through this piece by piece, because each one of these cases tells you something bigger about the system. This one is headquartered in San Diego, California. Prosecutors say a nonprofit executive, Amy Knox, was entrusted with funds meant to combat one of the deadliest crises in America right now, fentanyl overdoses. It's a huge problem across our country. Now, we're talking about money that was supposed to save lives. Instead, authorities alleged more than $130,000 was stolen, and at least $30,000 of that went to cosmetic surgery, of all things, a boob job, body procedures, personal upgrades, if you will. Stop and think about that for a second. Money meant to keep people from dying, allegedly used for elective surgery. And it didn't stop there. trips to Hawaii, Disney vacations, purebred dogs, everyday expenses, while families across this country are losing loved ones to overdoses. But if you think that's just one isolated case, think again. Head up the coast to Los Angeles. We're still in California. Federal prosecutors say a man named Alexander Sufer was running a nonprofit responsible for housing hundreds of homeless individuals. Now, this is part of a crisis California has spent billions of dollars trying to solve. Billions. And yet, according to the Justice Department, over $10 million of public money may have been diverted for personal use. Again, we're talking about a $7 million home in Westwood, a $125,000 Range Rover, private jet travel, luxury resorts, even a vacation property in Greece. All while his organization was tasked with helping more than 600 homeless individuals. He's living a lavish lifestyle. Now, just let that contrast sink in for a minute. People sleeping on the sidewalks, while the money meant to house them is allegedly funding beachfront views and private flights. Is that not just criminal? And then it gets even more jaw-dropping. A case tied to Shangri-La Industries, a company contracted to build housing for the homeless. Their former CFO, Cody Holmes, accused of embezzling more than $2 million. What did that buy? $46,000 a month Beverly Hills mansion, private jets, exotic cars, $128,000 in handbags, a $35,000 diamond watch, VIP passes to Coachella. Now again, this money that was supposed to build homes for people who don't have one, instead, it built a lifestyle. It supported an extravagant lifestyle. Let's go a step further, because this isn't just about nonprofits. This reaches into political circles as well. A former aide to Gavin Newsom, Dana Williamson, indicted on fraud charges tied to $1.7 million. Prosecutors say that included a $15,000 Chanel handbag, again, a private jet, and a $156,000 birthday party in Mexico. Again, taxpayer-linked funds, lavish lifestyle, same pattern. You get it? And up in San Francisco, another case. Gwendolyn Westbrook, CEO of a nonprofit that received tens of millions in government grants over 2 decades. Authorities say she misappropriated more than $1.2 million of that. Again, buying luxury cars, funding family weddings, even fertility treatments in this case. At one point, investigators say she was driving around with a trunk full of expensive jewelry. Now listen, this wasn't private money. This was public funding. This was our money, your money, my money, given with the expectation it would help communities in need. So step back, look at all this, and a bigger question starts to form. How does this happen over and over and over again? We're not talking about one bad actor here. We're talking about a pattern, a system where massive amounts of taxpayer money are flowing out the door with not enough oversight, not enough accountability, and in some cases, apparently, not enough consequences. Because let's be honest, if an average American misused even a fraction of that money, the consequences would be swift and severe. Now, here's the part that often gets lost in the headlines. Every dollar that was misused, every luxury purchase, every private jet flight, that's money that did not go where it was supposed to go. It did not help the addict trying to recover, did not house the family sleeping in a car or out on the street, did not support the programs meant to protect lives. This isn't just financial fraud. It's real. It has real human consequences. It's a crime. At the end of the day, it isn't about politics. It's about trust, the public trust. And once that trust is broken, it's hard to rebuild because people start asking, if this money isn't being used the way it was supposed to and the way we were told it's going to be, then what else is going on? And maybe that's the real story here. Not just the headlines about luxury homes and handbags, but a system that too often allows it to happen in the first place, again, over and over again. We're going to keep watching these types of cases unfold because accountability matters, transparency matters, and making sure taxpayer dollars actually serve the people they're meant to, that matters most of all. Now, let's move over and get caught up on some text messages. Faye writes, Joey, for my part, Lindsey Graham and Tucker Carlson both need to go away. Both have lost credibility. For me, President Trump does not want an October 7th on our soil. Wake up, knuckleheads. Thank you, Faye. Appreciate your comments. Look, I don't know about Tucker Carlson. I read a post that he did for Easter, and I honestly didn't recognize the person that it was coming from. It's not the Tucker Carlson that I thought I knew. And, I'm not going to go into great detail about it. Look it up. It was a post that he did for Easter on Facebook. Tell you what I'll do. I'll share it on my Facebook page, and just go search for Joey Hudson on Facebook, and you'll see where I've shared it. But it made no sense. I mean, he was almost attacking Christians, and that's just not the Tucker that I recognize. Texter says, Joey, I've been to 21 countries, and I've always been amazed at why we allow foreigners to buy land and houses here, but we can't buy land there, especially Asian countries. And when I ask why we're not allowed to buy, answer was they don't want foreigners taking over. Well, bingo. Put me in that category too. I think you probably feel the same way. And thank goodness that the South Carolina legislature appears to be taking action on this. That's exactly what we need to do. If you missed yesterday's show, we talked about this. The South Carolina legislature has a bill in front of them, and it looks like it's moving along. It's moving along in the House, at least, where they would prevent certain countries, and China is one of those, North Korea, from purchasing property in South Carolina. And now, look, I'm a free market guy. I think you should be able to buy property, do what you want to with property, but not in the case of where a foreign entity is buying up our farmland and our property. One of the things that I found in this article was where they gave instances of where China had bought property on each end of runways at military bases. Now, why do they want property at the end of runways at a military base? I think you and I both know that they're up to no good. Texter, hey, Joey, I've had a great interest in our space program since I worked for Rockwell International in Downey, California, when they were the lead contractor for the space shuttle program. I was a provisioning engineer for the communication and tracking systems for the space shuttle project for 2 years in the 80s. Because of all that, could you please send me the link to NASA's Artemis Image Library? Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you. Dom in Illinois. Well, thank you, Dom. And boy, I bet that was an exciting job to be able to be hands-on in the space shuttle program. And yes, I will send you that. I'll send you that link. I'm a little behind here, but I'll get that to you for sure. Texter, hey, Joey, it's Jennifer from our Fearless Leaders Easter message on True Social. God bless Trump. He is carrying such a heavy load, and the amazing rescue of the downed U.S. colonel and the perfect Easter sky that came at sunset instead of sunrise. It has been a powerful Easter Sunday, one to remember. Yes, it was a great Easter, wasn't it? And to hear the story of us going in and being able to extract that young man is just an amazing story. Talk about a story that was befitting Easter. That story, that rescue of that soldier or that airman is a Easter classic for sure. We've heard the old term government boondoggle. Well, boy, South Carolina appears to be about to redefine what a boondoggle is. So here's the story. South Carolina's economic development chief is blaming the state's Department of Natural Resources for the massive cost overruns on the side of the Scout Motors electric vehicle assembly plant in South Carolina. Commerce Secretary Harry Lightsey recently told state Senate budget writers who were putting their budget proposal together, we ended up in a situation that they took a position that we did not expect them to take, and that resulted in substantial cost. And he's talking about another state agency. The State Department of Commerce has racked up more than $150 million in overages as it works to fulfill pledges it made to lure the Volkswagen subsidiary to the Palmetto State. Now the agency is asking taxpayers to make up the difference. We got to pay for the mistakes. Roughly $100 million of the unexpected cost is due to the Natural Resources Agency, according to Mr. Lightsey. But it was never consulted during the deal-making process. So it's a classic case of the right hand not knowing what the left hand's doing. Ahead of deciding whether to fund Commerce's request, state senators wanted to know what sent the project over budget, who was responsible, and how to stop it from happening again. Now, this is the classic case of like the VC Summer project. We've talked for years now about the $1 billion plus boondoggle in those in that power plant, those nuclear power plants. People went to jail over it. So here's the deal. In its 2023 agreement with Scout, the State Department of Commerce and Richland County agreed to contract and pay for all mass grading of the 1,600-acre site, which is about 12 miles north of downtown Columbia, at no cost to the company. This was one of those incentives to sweeten the pot so that this woke company would come here to begin with. At the heart of the issue, according to the South Carolina Daily Gazette, were tight deadlines for getting the work done so that Scout would begin assembling vehicles next year in 2027, as well as an environmental package meant to offset the wetlands lost when the company started to build. Commerce needed a waiver from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to avoid a more lengthy 2-year environmental permitting study that Mr. Lightsey has said would have killed the deal with Scout. Looking back on it, they probably wished that the deal had been killed. So the cost of all the associated environmental requirements, all this government red tape, typical of a project like this, were to be borne solely by the state and the county. This is outlined in a 192-page contract. So Commerce in Richland County, on Scout's behalf, first offered to protect 4,902 acres of wetlands near Congaree National Park and another 155 acres on the Broad River. It's known as the Shelton Island, thinking that this would be enough to win the approval. The Department of Natural Resources, our own state agency, disagreed. That wasn't enough. In a letter to the Corps during the federal required comment period, the agency suggested adding improvements to streams in the Sumter National Forest. It also raised concerns that construction had already begun on the site, making it difficult to fully evaluate environmental impacts. They got ahead of themselves. Commerce did not consult the Natural Resources Agency before submitting its proposal, Lightsey admitted in response to a question from South Carolina Senator Tom Davis. Again, it's like nobody knew what the other was doing. They were just all scrambling around, rushing to try to get this company to come to South Carolina to build electric vehicles, which, by the way, nobody wants to buy anyway. Ultimately, we're told, the Corps required work stop on the site until the wetlands permit was approved, delaying construction for about 5 months while the equipment was already on site. In a breakdown of the $150 million that's needed, Mr. Lightsey gave legislators additional environmental work, and keeping equipment on site for those extra months cost about $70 million. So $70 million for additional environmental work and for just letting that equipment sit there. Don't you know whoever owned that equipment loved it? Not even running, and they're collecting rent on it. In most cases, on big projects like that, a lot of that equipment is leased. Now, they also were speeding up construction after the delay to get back on track after they've been shut down for 5 months. That cost an additional $20 million because they were paying overtime and that type of thing. He also attributed $17 million as the cost of building dams to stop runoff, which was required by a different state agency, the Department of Environmental Services. Wow. I mean, when you read this and you let this sink in, you're just amazed that this is how our state government is run. So, after working with the Department of Natural Resources, under its former director, Commerce in Richland County added 18 miles of stream restoration in Sumter National Forest to its environmental proposal, along with more improvements to land along the Congaree River, and the Corps finally signed off. Former Director Robert Boyles, who retired last year, declined to comment, according to the South Carolina Daily Gazette. Mr. Lightsey said he won't let such a cost overrun happen again. Well, I guess not. That's kind of like those at VC Sumner said, well, we won't let this happen again. The damage is already done. How did it ever happen to begin with? According to the report, Commerce is making internal changes to ensure other state agencies are brought into the fold on future projects. Under his leadership, Commerce also won't enter into agreements requiring it to fully complete construction projects. Instead, it will only agree to a set amount of spending, he said. See, that's the problem here. We were falling all over ourselves to lure Scout into the state, I guess thinking it's going to be another BMW, and we just gave away the farm. They had no risk. And granted, it was proposing a certain number of high-paying jobs. I get that. A lot of infrastructure. But you got to stop and think, at what point is it a detriment to the state? If they can't make it on their own, do we want them here to begin with? Senator Stephen Goldfinch told the South Carolina Daily Gazette he appreciates Mr. Lightsey's efforts, but the Murrells Inlet Republican worries capping spending might not actually fix the problem. Future heads of Commerce might opt to pad the budget up front to make it look like they're saving money on the back end, he said. And it's a good point, Senator. He said it's such an open-ended thing. The request to fund the overruns is quite a sore spot among a lot of South Carolina lawmakers. They've been talking about it this entire legislative session. Now we're down to the nitty-gritty on whether or not they'll actually give the millions to them. In his executive budget, Governor McMaster recommended giving Commerce only a third of the money it's requesting. I don't know where the rest of it's supposed to come from. I'm assuming that they obligated themselves to it. House budget writers declined to include any money for the project in spending they did approve last month. And in last week's GOP gubernatorial debate, Republican U.S. Representative Ralph Norman called it a boondoggle, which it is. There's a lot of anger and frustration and distrust, Senator Goldfinch said. After all, lawmakers in March of 2023 already agreed to spend $1.3 billion to bring Scout to the Palmetto State. That package includes $70 million to cover cost overruns, which Commerce has burned through as well. Wow. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. Right now there's no shortage of big developments. The Department of Homeland Security shutdown stretching past about 50 days or so, ongoing concerns about Iran and stability in the Middle East, and some major tax policy decisions that could directly affect small businesses and working families across South Carolina. So let's bring in someone who's right in the middle of these conversations in Washington, Congressman William Timmons. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Joey, doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Always a pleasure. Let's start with about the extraordinary rescue mission inside Iran. I mean, this wasn't just a routine extraction. We're talking about a wounded American airman evading capture for almost a couple of days while the U.S. deployed more than 150 aircraft, special operations forces. What does a mission like this say about America's military capability and, just as importantly, our commitment to never leaving one of our own behind?
I mean, it shows that we've gotten back to the core mission of fighting and winning wars. It was more than just an incredible military operation. There was an intelligence component as well. The CIA was actively distracting and confusing the enemy when we sent overwhelming force in to retrieve our downed pilot. So, I mean, I'm waiting for the blockbuster movie that's going to come out in 4 or 5 years already.
Well, that is a movie for sure. This morning, President Trump reminded the Iranians of his deadline for a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz by 8 o'clock tonight. He wrote on True Social just this morning, a whole civilization will die tonight never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think that we're going to use overwhelming force to bring them to heel. I mean, we can't keep doing this, and the fact that we're having to continue to engage in military operations is unreasonable. These people, I guess it's to some extent not surprising that the people that were screaming death to America and arming terrorists all over the world to attack us for the last 50 years are also not exactly rational actors. And I mean, the fact that they're able to find people to fill these leadership positions when the last 4 people have already been taken out is just kind of, I mean, it's illogical. So they're going to find sense through this, and we're going to get to the objective that we're seeking. Yeah.
You know, it just amazes me sometimes when I see some of the comments people are making about Iran and you know, they want the war to end. We all do, but they seem to be critical of the president and his taking action. You know, they just kind of forget the long history that we have with Iran, don't they?
They do. I mean, listen, thousands of Americans have died because of Iranian proxies. They are the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, and we're going to put a stop to that. And we should have long ago.
Yep. Congressman William Timmons is on our guest line. All right, let's shift gears here a bit. Talk with us about the DHS shutdown. What is it, about 50-plus days now? What's the latest on efforts to reopen the department?
Well, the Democrats are continuing to have unreasonable expectations, so we're going to go around them, and we're going to use reconciliation. Senator Graham and the Senate is actually working on it as we speak, and we're hoping to fund DHS not just for this year, but for the next 3 years. So we don't have to have this fight again during the president's time in office. So, you know, the fact that they're unwilling to fund TSA, we were able to get them paid using extraordinary measures that, you know, haven't been done before, but I guess we had to do it. So we were able to get all of our DHS employees paid, and we got to get Reconciliation 2.0 passed to basically not require any Democrat support. And I hope everybody, when they go through their TSA lines at the airports, remember that the only reason that the people that are keeping them safe got paid is because the president did something that's never been done before. And I mean, the fact that this is the world we're living in is just crazy. The Democrats' positions are just so extreme, and I think it's going to hurt them in the midterms.
Yeah. Talk with us, if you would, Congressman, about reconciliation. You know, I've had some listeners, and I've talked about this. Senator Graham, as you know, was here last Thursday for lunch with some supporters, and he talked about the plan for reconciliation. I've had some listeners say, well, why haven't they done this before now then? Explain reconciliation in layman's terms.
So anytime you pass government funding, let's start with just the normal process. When you pass government funding, the House passes their appropriations, and the Senate then has to pass them as well. So whatever we pass in the House is generally going to be a party line vote. It goes to the Senate, and it requires 60 votes. So we obviously do not have a 60-vote margin in the House, so we have to work with Democrats to address some of their priorities, and then they pass it. And so that is how government funding generally works. So when we get to contentious issues, like whether we're going to force ICE to get another warrant to arrest someone, which is ridiculous, or whether we're going to allow CBP and ICE officers to conceal their face because they want to protect their families and not get attacked. I mean, a number of policies that are just very straightforward that the Democrats have tried to say, we're just going to try to neuter ICE and Customs and Border Patrol. So we have the ability to reconcile the budget. So we basically go in and it has to be deficit neutral. So you have to save money and you have to spend money. And there's a bunch of weird procedural issues with the parliamentarian and the Senate that says you can and can't do certain things. So it's designed to be a workaround for the filibuster, and the Democrats started using it about 15 years ago, and so now we can use it. But the beauty of reconciliation is that we can address a lot of our priorities without any Democrat support because we have the House and the Senate. So that's kind of where we are now, and last year's reconciliation was, some people would know it as the one big beautiful bill. Some people would know it as the working family tax credit. So working family tax cuts. So we're basically going to do that again. We did it last year for $7 trillion. That was very difficult to find that much savings. So we're going to do our best to find more savings. It's going to be a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. And that's kind of where we are.
Yeah. Is there anything that we can do that would prevent this from happening in the future?
One thing that a lot of people talk about is the 1% cut CR, and I think it's a great idea. So there's a proposal that basically disallows government shutdowns. Yeah. So instead of any agency, their funding lapsing, they basically would get a 1% cut across the board, and they would then have to figure out what to do. 1% is not a lot, but it's a lot for certain agencies, but the planning thing is so huge and the cost of the shutdown is so huge. So I like the 1% cut. The other one I really like is that Congress doesn't get paid. So members of Congress are required to get paid under the 27th Amendment. And it has to be an amendment of the Constitution, but I do think that it'd be great if members of Congress didn't get paid if any part of the government shut down. I think that'd be a fun little nugget.
Yeah, might be a motivator for you guys to stay in town until you get the job done, right?
That's exactly right.
Congressman William Timmons, always a pleasure. Appreciate your time today. Be safe, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks for having me. Look forward to it.
Sure thing.
Hey, early riser. The award-winning Tara Show is coming up at 6. Your first look at the day's events continue on Sunrise, Carolina with Joey Hudson on News Talk 98.9 WORD, the voice of the Carolinas.
These days it seems like good, reliable service is just harder and harder to find. But with summer right around the corner, I know I can count on my friends at Patriot Pest Management to keep my home protected. It's honestly refreshing to see a company that still takes pride in their work. Patriot Pest Management is a local, family-run team, and that's the key there, family-run. And they've been serving the upstate for over 40 years now. My friend Keith owns the company, and he's in the office every single day. His son Bill's out in the field as a technician supervisor, making sure every home is taken care of, and his daughter Catherine keeps everything running smoothly in the office. That level of involvement means better service, real accountability, and a team that genuinely cares about protecting your home. If you like that type of service, give Patriot Pest Management a call to schedule a free inspection today. 864-895-7299. That's 864-895-7299. Or visit them online and request service at patriotpestmgt.com. Use the company that I use to protect my home, Patriot Pest Management, protecting your home with pride. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.